I drove from New Jersey all the way out to the plains this month to go storm chasing for 5 days straight. Here's what I saw. Day one of chasing kicked off in Kansas, where storms persisted from sunup to sundown. Now, I was a bit late to the party, but still witnessed some impressive structure, including shelf clouds that stretched for miles, and hail-producing supercells illuminated by the sunset. All around me, including lightning, but not close enough that I feel like I'm in danger. Later that day, I met up with Frankie and Sydney, some awesome chasers from Arkansas and Minnesota, and I'd be chasing with them for the next couple of days.
What were they doing instead?
On day 2, we traveled to northeastern Colorado, just outside of Denver, to wait for storms to develop with the potential for tornadoes. These storms started relatively early in the day and quickly clustered together, which held back on the tornado potential and kept us from seeing any photogenic tornadoes that day. On the other hand, the lightning was putting on quite the show. We wrapped up the day by watching Team Dominator drive through a quick spin-up as it crossed the road. And then we started the journey back south as we'd be chasing in Oklahoma on day 3 where multiple tornadoes would occur. Our target was in southern Oklahoma, just north of a bulge in the dry line, which is a boundary between dry and moist air that would act to initiate our storms. Like many Oklahoma tornado days, the main storms would mature along the I-44 corridor southwest of Norman. This day would produce a tornado that would track for 10 miles near Cole, a town that was hit by a tornado just less than a month prior to this event. Now this is what we call a low precipitation supercell, with a rain-free base and exposed updraft. It was generally thought that weaker upper level winds was the primary reason for higher precipitation storms, but recent research suggests that storm relative inflow is more influential when determining the size of the updraft and thus the amount of precipitation it produces. This day was a great example of that. Despite the weak upper level winds, weak storm relative inflow contributed to the birth of this beautiful storm. After 3 straight days of chasing and minimal sleep, I was exhausted, but more tornadic supercells were expected on day 4. I would encounter 3 tornadoes this day, 2 of which were rain-wrapped. Radar coverage was pretty poor in this region, so I would have to use my knowledge of storm structure when chasing these storms. I'll walk you through how I navigated in close proximity to these tornadoes and show you some of the textbook features of the storms that can be used when determining the general location of these rain-wrapped tornadoes. Here I'm located on an east-west oriented road, waiting for an area of rotation I see on radar to cross the road ahead of me that's moving from south to north. Initially, I see this needle-shaped tornado that lasts only a couple of minutes, and I decide to proceed forward once I see it dissipate. But upon an updated radar scan, I realized this tornado wasn't what I was seeing on radar, as there was still a much larger circulation that had yet to cross the road. Although difficult to tell with all the rain, I've highlighted what's called a horseshoe base, which is a unique shape of supercells updraft that indicates the presence of a rear flank downdraft, or RFD. The RFD, or also known as the bear's cage, is always rain beneath the horseshoe, and is a key mechanism in the production of supercellular tornadoes. Just near the perimeter of the horseshoe is the typical location for a tornado, and was the area that I was keeping an eye on as I cautiously approached eastward into the bear's cage. At this point, there was virtually no structure visible because of the rain, so I used the direction of the wind-blown rain bands to determine where the center of the circulation was, as winds and inflow will be pointing in the direction of a tornado in close enough proximity. I stopped next to this intersection because the winds were still out of the north, indicating that the tornado hadn't crossed the road yet. Only after looking back at footage was I able to see that this tornado was semi-condensed. As the tornado began to cross the road, wind shifted very quickly from northerly to westerly to southerly. Once I saw the wind shift, I knew the tornado had crossed and I proceeded forward. I'm now right where the tornado had crossed as it moved away from me northward into the adjacent field. Meanwhile, another storm an hour to my southeast had reports of a large tornado in progress, so I decided to get ahead of it by driving through the storm's rainy forward flank. I got into position on another east-west road as the tornado moved north toward my location. This is another great example of a horseshoe base with its associated RFD and bear's cage, including a tail cloud feeding into the updraft, which gave me a good idea of where the tornado was located within the rain, and allowed me to track with it until it finally dissipated. Day 5 featured a slow-moving supercell southeast of Des Moines, Iowa, and I chased it for a bit, but had to bail early on that storm to start making my way back home. It had been a dream of mine to go storm chasing in May, and I had a blast on this trip. If you ever thought about going chasing, do it. It's a great opportunity to learn about the atmosphere, you'll get to meet a lot of great people, and see a lot of beautiful places along the way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.